So I'm here at the Business Analysis Conference Europe 2022, and I've managed to collar Christina Lovelock. Now Tina's has given a presentation entitled Leaders, Followers and Trusted Advisors, and she's agreed to have a quick chat with us now. So Tina, thanks for agreeing to have a chat.
I'm very happy to, thanks Adrian.
So I was wondering, I know in your talk you discussed this idea of leaders, followers, trusted advisors. And when I hear trusted advisor, I suppose a question which comes to my mind is, how can we as BAs foster trust? How would you sort of recommend or respond to that?
Well, there's a couple of models that I talked about in my session. The first is the trust triangle, which is made up of empathy, authenticity and logic. So it starts by looking at the quality of our logic. Is what we're saying, does it make sense? And are we delivering it in a way that other people who are listening to us can understand? The next element is empathy. So do people think that we understand their point of view, their perspective, and are they able to understand where we're coming from? And then this tricky concept of authenticity, which is the little voice in our head saying, I don't think they really believe what they're saying, or that's the party line, but I don't think that they really believe that. So it's trying to take into account all of those three elements. So I really like that trust triangle because it's a good introduction to the idea of trust. But I also talked about a more complex model called the trust equation, which comes from a book called The Trusted Advisor. That talks about the elements of trustworthiness, which says that it's basically the sum of our credibility, reliability and intimacy, but that is divided by our selfishness or self-orientation. So if you be seen to be acting in your own interests and not in the wider interests of our stakeholders or others, that can really undermine trustworthiness.
That's really interesting, and actually going off on a slight unplanned tangent at this point, as so often we do when we chat. Authenticity is a really interesting point, and as you were talking there, I was thinking about an unrelated but seemingly similar topic of imposter syndrome, because I know I suffer from imposter syndrome. I don't know whether you do or don't, but I know a lot of BAs do. Do you see any relationship between like can imposter syndrome be a hindrance in showing authenticity, because perhaps you pretend to like gold plate things or tend to gold plate things?
Yeah, I think imposter syndrome is really prevalent within the BA community. I don't have a good answer as to why, but I think there is an interesting link between authenticity and leadership and imposter syndrome. And I think that we tend to think that if we try and fit in, that's going to help. That's going to help our career, that's going to help with our stakeholders. But it turns out that if we are inauthentic, people know it, they spot it. And if we're not authentic, they don't trust us as much. If they don't trust us, they don't give us stretching assignments and interesting work. And over our career, that's really going to hinder our ability to progress and ability to progress in our careers. So feeling like we need to fit in seems like it's the right thing to do in the moment, but over the long term, it is detrimental to our careers. That's
really interesting. Really interesting. I think it's seeded sown a seed. I think for me there.
Yeah.
So I'm also thinking about that idea of trusted advisor. Would you say that nudges business analysis towards a more almost like consultancy-based approach or consultancy service?
I think it definitely does. We talk about business analysis being the internal consultant, and the people who do that well understand, at least at a conceptual level, the idea of a consulting cycle, which starts with gaining entry. So how do you get your work? How does pieces of work, how do people find you? Who needs to know about your skills to be able to come to you with the work that you want to do? And the next element is contracting. So agreeing, even if it's an internal stakeholder, what are the expectations of both parties? That makes a massive difference in building trust. Then we have to deliver good business analysis, we have to deliver what we say we're going to do, but also we need to disengage appropriately. And applying the different elements of that consulting cycle builds trust in us, and it means that we are delivering on what we say we're going to do for people.
Absolutely. I love the idea of that consulting cycle, quite a useful model, whether it's internal or external or a combination of either or both or either of those things. So you've mentioned a few concepts or tools or techniques already, but are there any tools, techniques, concepts that you think people should be looking up and sort of getting familiar with?
One thing that I think BAs really need to look at is the different influencing styles, and I use the acronym BRAIN to help us to remember several different influencing styles. BAs tend to have a go-to influencing style, which is around logic and facts and giving as much information as we possibly can. Not everybody responds positively to that as an influencing style. There are other styles available, such as bridging, which is about building relationships with people so that they can say, well, I trust person A, and if they say that's the right thing to do, then I'm on board with it. We don't have to convince everybody every time if we've built that trust in people. So I think looking up those different influencing styles, using the acronym BRAIN is a really good tip for people to take away and research.
Fantastic. Yeah, go away and Google and find out. So if you were to sort of distill a key takeaway from your session into like 30 seconds, what would that key takeaway be?
So I think there's so much more emphasis on leadership rather than followership. I think followership is neglected within organisations. There is a presumption that people need to develop their leadership skills, but somehow everyone knows how to be a good follower. And in my experience, that's just not the case. So I think aspiring to good followership as much as we aspire to good leadership would be a takeaway from my session.
Fantastic. And Tina, you're a well-known BA leader, author and coach out there in the community. I'm sure people want to follow you, find out more about what you do, connect with you. What's the best way for people to get in touch?
I'd be delighted to connect with people on LinkedIn. I also write regularly for the BA Times, and you can hear more from me there.
Fantastic. So definitely, I'm sure people will be wanting to do that. So do connect with Tina. So if you've enjoyed the interview, do be sure to follow us on social media, subscribe. We'll bring you as many interviews while we're here as we can. But bye for now.